So here we're going to go ahead and do a tail, and I'm going to show you how to put in the fake tail first. I like to put them in before I braid the tail. It makes them, to me, more secure, and it makes it swing less when they're swishing their tail in the arena. And also, it gives a couple more points of being able to secure the tail when you braid around it. So I start off by getting the tail wet. Joey's going to be very active with his tail. And then I just hold the tail up against the tail, just the fake tail, so that I can see about where I want to hang it. And I want the tail to be about bottom of the fetlock, so about where it's hanging right now. And that means that I need to start my braid at this point. So I grab a fairly decent sized chunk of hair and I just start a braid. And I loop one of the pieces of the braid through the loop on the fake tail. Make one twist, and then I'm going to add in 2 pieces of yarn to the. For me, I add them into the back, or the 2 side pieces on the back, and I'm going to braid this down until I get to where this fake tail's at. And once I've hit that point, then I'm going to tie this off, and I grab one side of the 2 pieces. I cross it over my braid and then loop that through. And then I give several ties to make sure that this doesn't come undone to the knot. And then as a final step, I go and I just sort of lightly wrap this around and tie this off. And what this does is you have the main point where your tail is hanging, and again, you want to make sure you get a big chunk of hair. The smaller it is, the more likely you're going to break the tail. This gives it more stability. And then I secure it again down the bottom. Just adds a little extra support for the tail that's hanging in there. And then when I braid tails, I like to take a little bit bigger chunk, especially at the top, since this part of the tail tends to break. And so I start with my 3 pieces, and it's just basically a French braid all the way down. And so you're going to take tiny pieces, and when you take your pieces, you want it not take like a big chunk from the side. You want to try to get some coming towards the middle, and what that's going to do is going to make that braid hold the underhair a little bit better. Can't stand braiding with dry, constantly making my hands wet. And instead of just soaking the entire horse, if I just get this point of where I'm holding wet, it keeps my hands wet, and then especially when I bring around the pieces, it keeps them wet for a while without alarming the horse by putting a bunch of water on their tush. You want to try to keep these pieces as even as possible. And each time you grab a piece from the side, you're grabbing directly underneath that prior piece. And you want to try to keep your hands tensioned. Joey. Inevitably, you'll have somebody that wants to fight you with their tail and show you their bum. And as you can see, as I'm braiding around, bringing this braid down the tail, the hair is starting to come around where I've got the fake tail hidden. So it won't show through. So I'm starting to get to a point where the hair in my hands is getting to be a bit more than I want to hold. And one of the things I want to do is try to keep this center braid about the same size all the way down. So as I start getting to a point where the hair is too much in my hands and this braid's going to start getting bigger, probably in about 2 more swipes here. I want to start dropping some hair. So if you look at this braid that I've just done, this twist, I've got the new piece and it's pretty much sitting on this bottom section of the braid. And so I grab the opposite side and I just tuck it behind my hand, make sure I've got this still tensioned. I pull just a smidge to make sure that that's the same tension as everything else. And then I just pretend like nothing happened. So I'm going to do this again. So you've got my new section of the braid coming in and it's on this side. I grab this back little piece, kind of make sure I've got the right tension, and then I pretend like nothing happened. And I'll do this one more time. And this will allow me to keep going for a little bit. Before I have to drop hair again. And if you can see, the fake tail is now completely hidden behind what's coming around the tail, which is what you want. So as you get to the bottom, sometimes horses like to pull their tail away from you, like Joey's kind of trying to do here. You see him jerking his tail back towards his bum. So you want to keep your hands, your knuckles as close to the tail and sort of follow and push your knuckle into the tail, because otherwise your tail braid's going to loosen up at the bottom. Joey. Picked a lively one for you. Mm-hmm. Joey. Hey. So again, I'm at a point where I need to drop some hair. So I'm going to do that again. I think some braiders drop all the way down. They just drop every time they grab. I don't mind holding a little bit of hair. So I'll drop as I go, every couple of times. So I'm showing you this on a dirty tail because I can't tell you how many times people do not wash their tails, and this is what you're actually dealing with when you're braiding. Makes it a little harder to make your sections because the hair is dirty and doesn't want to comb out very well. So what I want to do is go down to the bottom of the tailbone. One more swipe. And I do tend to let my braid get a little bit bigger at the bottom, just for these like last few rungs, because this braid, I'm going to show you a wraparound. It gives you a nicer bump. Now, some people measure, they check. I have some sort of weird internal setting that tells me when to stop. So you should check and make sure, because you want this to go completely around the tailbone and tuck. So again, once I'm at the bottom of my braid, I add 2 pieces of yarn in to finish off the braid. And I'm going to just grab that piece and pull it through. And just do 1 tie, extra tie here. And then what I do is I bring the tail around, I kind of stick my hand through a loop, grab the tail and pull it through. Try not to pull the side rungs in. And so basically when you make it a little bit bigger, the braid, you can get a little bit of a more of a knob, which kind of gives it sort of a pinwheely effect without the pinwheel. The thing that I like about the wraparound tails when you have a fake tail is it actually gives you more support. So now this braid is going all around the tail and holding that fake tail that's in the center, and making it a little bit more stable as well. So when the horse swings, it has a natural swing to its tail without having a fake tail weirdly doing its own thing without the rest of the tail. So for this, I finish off this braid. Kind of go in through the side, and sometimes you can grab some of the fake tail, sometimes you don't. Sometimes the fake tail gets in the way and you have to kind of root around to get around it. But once I have my 2 pieces in or across, then I do a surgeon's knot, which is just like a double loop. So this is a regular knot, and then you add it around again and you have a surgeon's knot. And I place that underneath the braid, and you can see how it gives you a nice little bump. And then I try to spare yarn, so I'll use my last 2 pieces of yarn and anchor them up at the top just to help support, because this is where their tail's moving from their body, and the hair up here wants to tend to break a little bit more, especially if they sit on the wall or rub it, and this just gives them a little extra support. And again, you may see your braider might do more down, might do a couple more down. It's just sort of preference. This is how I like to do things. I'll show you really quick how to do a pinwheel. So here's a trick that comes in handy if you ever break your yarn and you don't feel like rebraiding the braid. Take some yarn, make a loop. You want it in the middle of the yarn, and And you just pull it through. Voila, now you have yarn. So for a pinwheel, you're going to take your yarn and split it into 2 halves with the 2 halves of the tail part of this braid. And you're going to roll it. And you're going to keep tension. You're going to keep pulling back on this as you roll it up. And then now that I've got it to the base of the braid, I'm going to hold it as tight as I can. I'm going to grab my pull through, come in behind the pinwheel, and to keep holding the pinwheel so it doesn't come unraveled. It takes a little dexterity. And I'm going to come in the same spot I just pulled that yarn through and do the same thing on the other side. And then once I've got the yarn through, I'm going to keep pinching this pinwheel. I'm going to tighten up one side, tighten up the other, do a surgeon's knot, top, and then you have these pieces that are sticking out. I'm going to start on this side. So what I do is I come up through these side rungs about the level that this hair is coming out. Maybe a little bit, one more rung taller. And I'm just going to loop it through. I'm going to try to be coordinated. And you do that to the other side, the same spot. And then once the hair is down, then I do another surgeon's knot and go underneath. And then I go on top and finish off underneath. And there's your tail.